Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Radio Republic.
Welcome to the Suspense radio podcast here on Radio Metropolis. Tonight, Danny Kaye plays against his lighthearted type as a man who plots the murder of his rival to win his woman by creating the perfect alibi. And by the name of this episode, his scheme to create this perfect alibi will be shown as being too perfect, which means certain things in his plan will have unexpected results. And we'll talk about that after the episode, so make sure you stick around for the commentary. Danny Kaye, who plays our schemer Sam tonight in this episode called The Too Perfect Alibi from January 13th, 1949, is best known for fun, lighthearted roles in such classic films as Wonder Man, 1945, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, 1947, The Inspector General, 1949, Hans Christian Andersen, 1952, and The Court Jester, 1956, just to name a few. On television in 1956, The Secret Life of Danny Kaye was a story featured on the Edward R. Murrow CBS show See It Now, focusing on his 50,000-mile, 10-country tour as UNICEF ambassador. From 1963 to 67, he starred in The Danny Kaye Show, winning 4 Emmy Awards and a Peabody. And, of course, I can't mention people without mentioning problems with people, so because that's what makes it interesting. You want to hear about some controversies, right? Well, everybody had them, and they're interesting. Danny Kaye, brilliant performer, but he faced controversy regarding his demanding, often difficult personality and personal life. He was said to be a perfectionist who could be abrupt and controlling. And topics where he displayed his sharpness focused around his television show, his marriage, his alleged infidelities, and personal relationships. Now, that's what it says as to what pissed him off. And when you look at that sentence, you go, well, who wouldn't be pissed off if you dug into all of those things and made insinuations about that? Yeah, you don't have to be Danny Kaye, a difficult person, to be upset by that. I would be upset by that if somebody was constantly digging around, just trying to find something, even if it was nothing, to make it sound like it was something. Nobody wants that. You don't want that. Harvey Korman, whom we know best, and I love Harvey Korman, Carol Burnett's show, and the one who can never keep a straight face around Tim Conway. Remember the sketch, The Dentist? Very, very funny. He was a regular on the Danny Kaye Show, and he said that Kaye was a nightmare, alleging that Kaye would intentionally sabotage a skit and change lines when Korman got too many laughs in rehearsal. His caustic temperament, which came across quite often as a detached personality, often contrasted with his warm on-screen persona. Now, that's what was said about him, and this is what Korman said. Too many laughs in rehearsal that he was getting. Now, let's look at this. Harvey Korman is the second banana or third banana on the Danny Kaye Show, and the show is called The Danny Kaye Show. So Danny Kaye, just like Lucille Ball, has to protect the image of the show and the direction of the show and the reason why it is named after that person. So if Harvey Korman is getting too many laughs, that's perhaps he's not supposed to get too many laughs, only because Korman is delivering the show by stealing the limelight from Danny Kaye to make his lines funnier. And Harvey Korman's a funny guy, funnier than Danny Kaye. And again, you're looking at a show that's much like I Love Lucy, in which Lucille Ball was the hurricane, and everybody around her was the calming factor. And in the case of the Danny Kaye show, it's very much kind of the same thing, because he was sort of an eccentric, guy, just a very active sort of individual. And so was Harvey Korman. So you've got two of these same personalities, these hurricanes, combining together. And sometimes one part of the hurricane will outshine another part of the hurricane. The Andy Griffith Show, on the other hand, another great show from Desilu, from Lucy's studio, it went the opposite way. Andy Griffith realized this very early on, because when they first started the Andy Griffith Show, he was the hurricane as well. Did you know that? And Barney was a little more subdued. Then he realized, hey, I've got all of these great comedic actors around me. Let them be the crazy ones. Let me be the responsible adult that reacts to everything. So in essence, Andy Griffith became the center of the hurricane. That's how that worked there. But Danny Kaye wasn't the center of a hurricane to let Harvey Korman go do his thing. Harvey Korman was not Barney Fife, not Don Knotts. He wasn't doing that. So that's why there were those issues. And that, I'm sure, if you have a touchy personality to begin with, that would really put you off a little bit more and give you that definition of being a detached personality, and not the nice, warm on-screen persona that we see in the movies and on television. It happens all the time in TV. Actors, especially people with their names on the show itself, or who are the first position that the show is really created around them, they have to protect that, because they're hired for that particular reason. And they can't leave a very talented second banana come in and usurp all of that, because that will ultimately tank the show. In Kaye's biography, Nobody's Fool, Martin Gottfried wrote it. He criticized, I'm talking about Martin Gottfried now, who he was criticized for focusing heavily on, and some reported downright fabricating the negative aspects of his life, of Danny Kaye's life, including speculation about his sexuality and relationships. He was reportedly involved in long-term affairs, including a publicized relationship with actress Eve Arden, and alleged, though unlikely, liaison with Laurence Olivier, which is said to have strained his marriage to Sylvia Fine. Now, to set the record straight, and that's not me setting the record straight, this was way back when, there was no evidence, after careful investigation, of any such affair with Laurence Olivier. There was even a rumor of a feud with Bing Crosby, whom he worked with on White Christmas. That rumor, like the one mentioned with Olivier, was largely unfounded, as they had a good relationship. On a side note, he was a partial owner of the Seattle Mariners in 1976, and he was also a chef and jet pilot. Pretty rounded guy. Yeah, he had issues. Okay. In 1983, Kaye had quadruple bypass heart surgery and contracted hepatitis C from a blood transfusion. He died 4 years later on March 3, 1987, from complications of heart failure, internal bleeding, and hepatitis C. He was 76. And let me just say, I don't have feelings one way or another about Danny Kaye. I saw maybe a couple of his films. I think he's okay. I mean, it doesn't do much for me. So I'm not here defending one of my all-time favorite comedian or light actors, like I would do with a Cary Grant, for example, who I just idolize, and Charlton Heston and those kind of guys. Danny Kaye, I never really got into. But I don't like these kind of attacks, and I understand where they come from. And I understand how somebody like a Danny Kaye or anybody in that position would react. Lucille Ball did the very same thing. Very same thing. You ask Vivian Vance. You ask William Frawley. It's the very same thing. She would not let those two get too much of the laughs, because it would take away from what she was doing. And she made sure, Lucille Ball now, she made sure that Vivian Vance never was the same weight as Lucy, that would never wear the better clothes than Lucy in the show. Ethel had to look a certain part and never outshine Lucy. That's very true. And yeah, sure, they were friends, but they were rivals. But they talked about this, and it was you look at interviews later in life, they'll talk about it. All right, so let's get to our episode tonight, which is considered one of the best suspense episodes in its 20-year history for its plot complexity, performance, and suspenseful buildup. Fantastic. Can't wait to hear it. And please, go to Apple Podcasts to review these podcasts for us. If you like what you hear, please, every little bit helps. And I want you to stick around for my review after this episode, as I will have plenty to say, even if I've said quite a bit so far. This is, I should say, The Too Perfect Alibi from January 13th, 1949, here on the Suspense Radio Podcast on Radio Metropolis.
And now, Autolite and its 60,000 dealers and service stations present...
Suspense. Tonight, Autolite brings you Mr. Danny Kaye in The Too Perfect Alibi, a suspense play produced and directed by Anton M. Leader.
Prince Charming. That's what Jack called me. And when he said that, something clicked inside of me. I remembered how in fairy tales the good prince always married the princess, and they lived happily ever after. Yes, happily ever after. Except that first there was the ogre that had to be taken care of. They were spending the weekend at my house in Croton, Catherine and Jack. The girl I loved and the fellow she loved. Oh, I admitted I was stupid to let myself in for it, but I just couldn't help myself. I had to have Catherine near me. She was the loveliest thing on God's earth, slender and blonde, with flecks of the purest gold in her hair, and eyes just as green as the sea. Jack was what the girls call a beautiful hunk of man, a one-time football hero. But now he was a clerk in a sports shop, a nobody. And why Catherine was so mad about him, I'll never know. After dinner Saturday night, we sat out on the terrace and looked out on the Hudson a half-mile away. Everything was quiet, peaceful.
Jack, shall I tell him? After all, he is our best friend.
Sure, honey, might as well.
Tell me what?
We're getting married Monday, Sam.
Married?
Hey, I'm the one who should look like he's going to face a firing squad, not you, Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry, kids. It was just such a surprise, that's all.
How about it, Sam? Will you be the best man?
Sure, of course I will.
Oh, good.
And congratulations, both of you.
Thank you, Sam, dear. You know, you're the sweetest, kindest, nicest, best-hearted person I've ever known.
Well, she means outside of me, of course.
Well, I do not, Jack Stewart. If it weren't for you, you big lug, I might even be marrying Sam on Monday.
Hey.
Say, I just thought of something. You like my place up here in Croton, don't you?
Like it. We love it.
Well, then it's yours.
Wait a minute, Sam.
I'm giving it to you for your wedding present.
Oh, Sam.
You always pick up the check, don't you?
What do you mean, Jack?
Everything you do makes me look cheap. You give Catherine a job and pay her twice what I make. You give us free theater parties, free dinners, and free weekends in the country. Now you want to give us a free house.
Now, look, Jack, you've got me all wrong. I just want to give you kids a good start, that's all. I want you two to be happy.
Just like in the fairy tales, eh? The prince and the paupers, and good old Sam as Prince Charming as always. Well, no thanks.
That was when I got the idea. When he called me Prince Charming. That was when I remembered about the prince, the princess, and the ogre. And you know what happens to the ogre in all the fairy tales, don't you? You remember that, don't you? He dies. And he dies because the prince kills him. Catherine left with Jack, and I was miserable. I paced the floor for hours. All I could think of was that today was Saturday, and on Monday noon she would marry him. 2 more days, and she'd be lost to me forever. I couldn't let it happen. I wouldn't. I had to get rid of him. What I needed was a weapon to defend myself with after I killed him. An alibi. A strong, unshakable alibi. A perfect alibi. It took me all night and gallons of coffee to figure that one out, but I did it. And the first thing Sunday morning, I phoned Jack in New York. I persuaded him not to hang up on me.
Well, what do you want?
Jack, ever hear of the Allegheny Sporting Goods?
Did I ever hear of J.P. Morgan?
Well, a friend of mine owns Allegheny.
So?
And he needs a sales manager. I've arranged an appointment for you first thing tomorrow so you can get the job before you get married.
What?
It pays $20,000 a year. And you can buy your own wedding presents.
Are you serious? Does he know I'm only a clerk?
Well, it's just a matter of selling yourself, Jack.
But
If you're free tonight, I'll be glad to give you a few pointers on the best way to approach him.
Well, that's great.
Look, Jack, I'm going to a party in town tonight. And if you can meet me around 10.
Well, Sam,
Here's the address, Jack. 3365 East 56th. I'll wait for you near the corner.
Okay, thanks. Just one thing, Sam. Don't tell Catherine about this, will you? You see, in case I get the job, I'd like her to feel I got it on my own. You understand, don't you?
Sure. Of course, Jack.
Oh, thanks, Sam. See you tonight at 10.
My hands were shaking so hard I could barely reach up to wipe the perspiration from my forehead. I was scared stiff. I was frightened because I had intended to ask him to keep it a secret from Catherine. Instead, he'd asked me. Everything about my alibi was working out perfectly. I drove to town. I went to the State Street ticket office and bought a ticket for the Staten Island ferry. Then I went uptown to my apartment. I had lots of time, so I decided to treat myself. There was a nice, thick, juicy steak in the icebox, and I fixed it just right and rare. As I sat at the table enjoying the steak that cut like butter, I got an idea. A good idea. Just the thing. Eventually, it was time to go to the party.
Why, Sam Rogers, where you been keeping yourself all summer, you dog?
Running a still on my mountain up in Croton.
Hi, Sammy.
Hi. I spoke to everyone I knew and a few people I didn't know. I made certain that practically everybody saw or talked with me sometime during the evening.
Hello, Sam.
Where are you rushing off to, Frank?
Hey, want to hear the 9 o'clock news?
Oh, the news? Do you mind if I join you?
Not at all. Come along.
We listened to the news until 9:15. Then I got involved in an argument over Soroyan's new play.
Of course he's mad, Sam. That's why he's so wonderful.
Before I knew it, it was time. 1 minute to 10. I slowly smiled my way toward the door and edged my way out of the noisy crowd without anyone noticing. I walked casually through the open door. Once outside, I quickly walked away from the house toward the corner. I stopped under a tree where it was dark to wait for him. Well, I was just in time. A car turned the corner. I stepped out to flag it and froze. It was a police SWAT car.
Hey, why don't you watch where you're going?
My face was drenched when I stepped back on the curb. For the first time, I realized how easy it would be to make a slip. This time, I made sure it was Jack's car before I stepped out. Park here, Jack, under the tree.
Okay. Sorry I'm late, Sam. The ferries were jammed. And on top of that, I had an argument with Catherine.
Oh? What about?
Oh, the usual, you know. First, she brought up your house again, and then she was jealous about some girl I kidded with on the beach this afternoon. Didn't mean anything, but you know Catherine. We practically had a slugging match in the restaurant. She'll be over it by morning. Which reminds me, Sam, I'm awfully sorry about the way I blew my top last night.
Oh, that's all right.
You're still going to be my best man at the wedding, aren't you?
Oh, sure, Jack. I'll be your best man.
Oh, that's wonderful. Catherine was right, Sam. You are the nicest, sweetest guy we've ever known.
Oh, forget it, Jack. Now, suppose we sit in the back seat of your car and talk about your new job. Okay? Get in.
Okay.
And do you know that was the last word he ever said? Okay! There he was, lying in the back of his car, and sticking up out of the middle of his back was my favorite steak knife. After I stabbed him, I watched him slump to the floor of the car. And that's all there was to it. The ogre was dead. And now the prince and the princess could live happily ever after. I pushed his feet into the car and slammed the door. I locked the car with the keys I found in the ignition and put them in my pocket. Then I eased myself back into the house. I picked up the thread of conversation just as if it had never been broken.
Well, that's the name of the game, kid. Gin.
You never should have held on to those two kings, Johnny boy.
Okay, Sam. Suppose you stop kibitzing and play this card shark yourself. He's got those things hypnotized.
Well, just step to one side, John, and I'll show you a few tricks an old yogi named Gunga Jin once taught me. I played gin all evening with Frank Bostwick. And though I never did like him very much, somehow I felt warm and friendly towards him now.
Good night, darling.
Then around 12-ish, the party broke up. I waited till practically everybody else left. Then I bid my host good night, got into Jack's car, and drove off. I got to the Staten Island ferry slip just before 12:30. I was lucky. The traffic was still heavy. Nobody would notice me. I took out the ticket I bought in the afternoon and drove aboard. A moment later, we started across the bay. I could breathe again. I checked off another point in my alibi. If they ever faced me with a night shift ticket agent, he would have to swear he'd never seen me or sold me a ticket in his life. It was so easy, I felt like laughing. I turned and looked at him lying on the floor in the back. He wasn't fighting me anymore. My alibi had him beaten all the way down the line. Suddenly, two things happened to me at once. I saw the knife sticking out of his back.
Have your tickets ready, please.
The ticket collector. I'd forgotten about him, too. I couldn't afford to have anyone remember me on this boat, and I had to get rid of that knife. I had to act fast. In spite of the sick feeling in my stomach, I leaned over the seat and yanked the knife out of Jack's back. His head jerked around and grinned up at me. I looked around for a piece of paper to wrap the knife in. There wasn't a scrap anywhere. I pulled out my wallet, grabbed 2 or 3 bills, and covered the blood-dripping blade in the bills. I got out of the car, jammed my tickets under the windshield wiper where he had to see it.
Tickets.
Then I scrambled through a maze of bumpers and fenders till I reached the rail. My heart sounded like a bass drum. I leaned on the rail and looked into the black water. Then I dropped the knife over the side.
Hey, I saw you do that.
What? What did you...
Don't you know it's against the law?
What is?
Dumping paper into the harbor. You could get arrested for that, mister. You better watch your step or something.
Oh, thank you. I kept my head turned away from him so he couldn't get a good look at me. He'd never recognize me in a court of law, no, sir. Anyway, he'd forget all about me 5 minutes from now. My alibi was still 100%. I got back into the car. When we landed, I drove a few blocks inland. I left the car in front of a house and walked back to the ferry. By the time I got home, an hour later, I'd lost all my fears. I felt wonderful again. I went right to bed and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. I slept so soundly, in fact, that they stood there ringing my bell for 5 solid minutes before they woke me up. I opened my door and saw 2 detectives standing there with an invitation to visit Inspector Vanelli of the New York Homicide Bureau. Then I remembered about last night. Inspector Vanelli was a slender, swarthy man who looked more like a successful businessman than a police officer.
You know Jack P. Stewart, Mr. Rogers?
Certainly. Why?
He's been murdered. His body was found at 9 o'clock this morning in a parked car on Staten Island.
What? I can't believe it. This was his wedding day. He and Catherine were going to be married.
Mr. Rogers, what was your relationship with Catherine Gilpin?
Inspector, I think I ought to tell you right off that I'm probably your best suspect.
You are?
Yes. Catherine turned me down for Jack. That probably gives me the best motive in the world for killing him, doesn't it?
Well, supposing you let me decide who had the best motive. Okay, Mr. Rogers?
Okay.
All right, now the best place to begin is at the beginning.
He kept me there hour after hour while the police stenographers crammed their pads with notes. Finally, late in the afternoon, one of the detectives hurried in and whispered something to him. Inspector Vanelli's hard face broke into a rocky smile.
Okay, Mr. Rogers, you're clear. But I don't mind telling you now, I was sure it was you.
Really, Inspector? Why have you changed your mind?
Well, we have 35 affidavits from responsible people swearing that you were at a party between 9:30 and 11:30 last night. And that's when Stewart was murdered. That settles it. You've got a perfect alibi.
I could hardly believe it. It had been so easy. Only yesterday the girl I loved was miles away from me, unattainable. Today she was mine for the asking. No more rivals, no more competition. Gradually she would forget Jack and turn to me. It would take time, I knew that. But I had plenty of time. I could wait. Catherine phoned me the next morning. And suddenly I didn't have any time at all.
Sam, they've arrested me for Jack's murder.
They've what?
They've arrested me.
But they can't. It's just a stupid mistake, Catherine. Look, I'll call my lawyer and we'll get you out of there right away. But we couldn't. In New York, you can't bail out a person accused of murder. What could they possibly have on her? It was ridiculous. But the thought of Catherine in prison was pure torture for me. My attorney suggested I retain Simon Blade, the shrewdest criminal lawyer in the state. Blade investigated every detail of Catherine's story. Finally, after 2 of the longest weeks of my life, he called me in.
All right. Now, here's the district attorney's case, Mr. Rogers. She and her boyfriend had an argument in a public place, a restaurant. They argued about 2 things. 1, she wanted to take your country house for a wedding present, but he didn't. 2, he made a little goo-goo eyes at some blonde on the beach, and she burned up. She tells him he's cheating on her. So then he burns up. He tells her to go marry somebody else and walks out.
Yes, but how do the police know all this?
They have witnesses, Mr. Rogers, witnesses. Now, she says that after the fight she went home alone and cried on her bed. But the DA says she ran after the boy, rode out into the country with him, and stuck a knife in him for calling off the wedding.
Her word's as good as his, isn't it?
Certainly, and she's prettier than the DA, too, but, well, I'm not finished. It seems that the management of the restaurant bought 24 new steak knives that week.
Steak knives?
Yes. The girl and the boy had steak for dinner, and the next morning one of the new knives was missing. The police took a sample knife down to the morgue, and it makes a perfect fit with the stab wounds in the cadaver's back. Now, all we have is her word that she didn't do it, and there's only one person in the world who can prove that she's telling the truth.
Who?
A corpse with 3 holes in it.
On the day of the trial, I sat with Simon Blade and waited for them to bring Catherine in. And when she came in, she looked so young and so lost. I had all I could do to keep myself from jumping to my feet and telling them the truth. Then she saw me. Her eyes lit up and she smiled. And I smiled back. And somehow I felt sure it would all come out right, just as I had planned it. Simon Blade was wonderful in that courtroom. One moment wringing sympathy from the jury for Catherine's pale face. The next frankly exploiting her sex with a knowing eye. And when he strutted before a terrified witness, his barbs always hit the bull's eye.
And how did you know, sir, that the knife was missing from your restaurant?
We counted. We counted them and found one was missing.
You count your silver, huh?
Yes, sir.
What's the matter, Demos? Don't you trust your customer?
Blade forced Demas to admit that customers walked off with knives, forks, and spoons every day, that several persons had steak that night, and that anyone might have taken that knife. Everything was going along fine. And then the district attorney exploded a surprise in our laps.
Do you recognize this handkerchief, Miss Gilpin?
Yes, sir. It's mine.
It's yours. And would you please tell the jury what made these stains on your handkerchief?
What? Blood. Blood? They're blood stains. But you mustn't think...
Whose blood?
Jack's. It's Jack's blood, but I'm not guilty.
Order! Order in the court. If there are any more such disturbances, I shall order the courtroom cleared. Proceed, Counselor.
So, Miss Gilpin, you admit this is the blood of Jack Stewart?
Yes, he had a nosebleed. He always had them when he was excited. I loaned him a handkerchief.
A very convenient explanation. Shall I tell you, Miss Gilpin, what I think the real explanation is? I think you stabbed Jack Stewart.
No.
Then in your jealous rage, you struck again and again.
No.
Then, calmer, you noticed that your hands were covered with blood. His blood.
No.
You wiped them on the handkerchief. This handkerchief, Miss Gilpin.
No.
And went to dispose of the body.
No, no, no!
Oh, the DA was very convincing. And the jury thought so, too. Because when they came in after 11 hours, they found Catherine guilty of murder in the first degree. We appealed the case and lost. I pulled every string I could to get a commutation from the governor. It was hopeless. I had to face it finally. I had killed Jack so I could have Catherine. But I couldn't have her now, and I didn't want to go on without her. I went to the DA and told him everything.
Mr. Rogers, are you trying to tell me that you killed Stewart to keep him from marrying Miss Gilpin?
That's right. That's right. Since I can't have her, I might as well confess. Will you arrange to have her released?
Look, Rogers, I know exactly what you're trying to do, but I've got no time for heroes. I've got 35 sworn affidavits in my files which prove that you couldn't have killed Stewart. I've got my conviction, and so far as I'm concerned, this case is closed.
You wouldn't believe me. And Catherine's execution was only a week off. I went to the newspapers with my story, but they wouldn't believe me either. One of them did send a reporter with me to see the people who were at the party that night.
Sam, it's wonderful what you're trying to do, but I can't lie about it, and I won't.
That was the kind of answer I got everywhere I turned. Then I tried to find the two policemen who'd passed as I left the house and the man who had seen me throw the knife off the ferry, but it was useless. I couldn't find one person who would believe me, not one. The next day, I made a last attempt to see Catherine. They wouldn't let me. But late that afternoon, I received a note from her. It was heartbreakingly full of all the things we planned now would never do. And what hurt me most was the part where she said,
I heard all about it, Sam, and I love you for it. I love you for your foolhardy attempt to save my life at the expense of your own. Jack once called you Prince Charming, but he never dreamed what a prince you really are.
even she, Prince Charming, even Catherine wouldn't believe me. And that was harder to take than all the rest. And you don't believe me either, do you, friend?
Well, Mr. Rogers, it's very hard to...
Shh. Listen. It's 12 o'clock all over again, isn't it, Joe?
Why don't you go home like a good fellow, Mr. Rogers?
I can't sleep, Joe. I just can't sleep. How can I sleep when nobody will believe me? Joe, why do the innocents always suffer in this world? Catherine was innocent. Why did she have to suffer?
Oh, you got it all wrong, Mr. Rogers. The innocents don't suffer, but the guilty, they're the ones. Take you, for instance. Supposing you really was guilty of Jack Stewart's murder, and supposing she paid for your crime, why, you'd have 2 lives on your conscience this very minute, Mr. Rogers. And you'd have been suffering for those 2 lives ever since the night she went to...
Yes, you're right, Joe. You're right. It is the guilty who suffer.
Say, Joe, how about that fella?
Him? He's been coming in here these 10 years now, telling the same story to anybody who listened.
10 years?
Sure. And where do you suppose he's gone now? Another bar, most likely, to pick up a conversation with somebody else like you and live through it all over again.
But about what he said, do you really think he killed him?
Mr. Rogers? Him? Not on your life. Why, he's a prince of a guy.
Thank you, Danny Kaye, for a splendid performance.
Thank you very much. I feel a little better now anyway. It's been a great pleasure for me to be here on Suspense, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm especially grateful to Tony Leader for letting me play the kind of role which you and I don't usually associate with me. It was a lot of fun, if you can call being a murderer fun. Well, next week, radio's outstanding theater of thrills will bring you Dana Andrews in a famous story by Cornell Woolrich, If the Dead Could Talk. Another gripping study in
suspense.
Danny Kaye will shortly be seen in the Warner Brothers Technicolor production Happy Times. Tonight's suspense play was written by Martin Stern with music composed by Lucien Morawek and conducted by Lud Gluskin. The entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. In the coming weeks, Suspense will present such stars as Robert Montgomery, Fibber McGee and Molly, Ronald Coleman, Jane Wyman, and James Mason. Make it a point to listen each Thursday to Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills. And next Thursday, same time, hear Dana Andrews in Cornell Woolrich's If the Dead Could Talk. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
And that was The Two Perfect Alibi from January 13th, 1949, here on the Suspense Radio Podcast on Radio Retropolis. There always seems to be a repeatable theme that I'm quick to point out here when it calls for it, and that is nothing on earth is ever that perfect, right? It never is as advertised. You know, I've always said that somebody always knows something. That's another one as well, too. You can't ever really get away with anything. Something can be too perfect. When I say too perfect, think about this. Every choice leads to a certain result, which acts as a chain reaction to another result. And when this happens, an unexpected result is inevitable someplace down the chain, no matter how well you planned it, as it's a result that never ends, since one result leads to the next and to the next and so on. And I'm not just talking about this particular story where, eventually they'll come up with something. I'm saying since the beginning of time, everything is based on result. Action, result, cause and effect. That's since man first stepped foot, first said, hey, here I am. It's been cause and effect, action and result. And that result caused an action, which caused the result, which caused an action, which caused a result. And here we are, hundreds of thousands of years later. And here we are talking about this story about the next cause and effect. And when you have that, you can sure expect the unexpected, just like this happened here. So, the unexpected result is inevitable, no matter how well you planned it, as a result that never ends. In this case, Sam had no clue, as his too perfect alibi would instead steer the suspicion and ultimate conviction towards the innocent woman he loved and planned to be with, which was the basis for this elaborate perfect scheme in the first place. When Sam finally confesses, nobody believes him. So, instead of removing his rival with his too perfect alibi, he ended up removing the object of his desire. That is karma. And that'll do it for us tonight. That was The Two Perfect Alibi from January 13th, 1949, here on the Suspense Radio Podcast on Radio Retropolis.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today,